ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Paradise Table Talking. I'm your host, Bernita Edison. Do you know that it is the will of God that every man be saved and be delivered from sin and reign with him forever? The Bible says in 1 Timothy 2:4, who will have all men to be saved and to come into the knowledge of the truth. That is right. You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. No matter where you live or what part of the world you come from, Jesus will find you and will touch you in his life. Our topic for today is called East Meets West. And we're so excited because there is no better person than with us today than to lift up the name of Jesus, than a good friend of ours and a man of God, Sammy, and he is from the old country. So I'm just so glad that you're here with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. Absolutely.
I'm just really glad, and we finally got you here. And before we get started with all these wonderful things I know you have to tell us about the old country, tell us a little bit about you. I know earlier you showed me that wonderful picture of you as a young boy talking with the young people.
Yeah.
And I thought that was amazing. You look so cute. That was cool.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, my name is Sameh Hinen. I was born in Egypt.
Wow.
And
awesome.
it's the land of refugee. As we know and believe as an Egyptian, God blessed Egypt with a unique blessing.
Yes, he did.
And it was an honor for us to have Jesus and Mary and Joseph, the Holy Family, come to Egypt as a place of refugee. And one of the fun facts that I love, actually, I was born in Elminia. It's a city in Upper Egypt.
Right.
It's around 150 miles from south of Cairo. And the history tells that Jesus and Mary actually lived in this city for almost 3 years.
Wow.
And I was born in the same place. So that's an amazing fact that I love always to share and talk about it.
Oh, I bet. That's good.
They grew up there.
Good.
So yes, and when I was almost a year and a half, 2 years, my family, we moved to Sudan. And my dad used to be a missionary pastor. So as a family, we got to live in Sudan for almost 9 years.
And being a Christian pastor over in
Sudan.
In Sudan.
Yes,
wow,
yes.
That's different.
And that's different. It was a tough time too in the beginning of the 80s because there was a civil war between the North and the South. We were in the capital of Sudan. And we saw an amazing time there. I have a great memory, a fond memory of the people of Sudan and the country there, being able to just share life with local people there.
Right.
And even during the hard war, even where there was a war between the South and the North, and there was a lot of turmoil in the area, but we always saw God's hands in every way, every day in our life, and in safety, keeping us safe, keeping the church safe, and the body of the Christ being saved there. It's an amazing memory, definitely. And after that, we actually moved to Syria. And Syria and Lebanon, and we lived there around another 12 to 13 years.
Right.
Continue in the field with my dad leading a church in Syria. And it was just getting to see another culture, learn another language, and just get to know more people. And I've been able to just be in a school there, travel from Syria to Lebanon, and talking about Syria and remembering Syria, it breaks my heart to hear all the news and what's happening in Syria.
Right.
And it's amazing because Syria is kind of like one of the oldest culture in the world. Damascus is one of the oldest inhabited, capital city.
I know Damascus.
And the gospel
road to Damascus.
Exactly, the road to Damascus. Exactly.
Yes.
And the Christianity and the values that is spread from Damascus, from Syria to around the world. It breaks my heart to see what's happening there, but I believe that God is going to reach out there and evolve that,
Involve
more
that.
of that. So.
Well, I know a lot of, I hear a lot of people are really wanting to go visit the Middle East. I know I was privileged to be over there in the Kuwait area and in that part of the Middle East, being in the military. And I didn't take it for granted. I really enjoyed it. But I won't take away from what you're saying, because I just had to bring that up because it was exciting. Because, well, I will say this. The Spirit of God, I'm telling you, it was just amazing. It's like when I began to pray over there with my uniform on in the military, before I could even say the name Jesus, I could just feel that beautiful Spirit.
Yes.
It's something precious
Absolutely.
I love about the Middle East.
Yeah,
It
and
really is.
thank you. I wanted to say thank you for your service, and
Oh.
thank you for all our men and women who definitely,
Yes.
going in the Middle East and all the hard places, and we
Yeah.
pray for safety and protection upon
Yeah.
them every day. And it's I love that there's a unique thing in our culture in the Middle East. We're very friendly culture. We're very
Right.
about family, group-oriented culture.
I believe it.
We love welcoming people, and that just goes back to years and years in the Middle East. Even like centuries back, Egypt was a Christian country, and all the Coptic church there was spreading even in Iraq, Syria, Lebanon. There's a lot of Ashurian. There's a lot of history in this area,
Right.
where Christianity, grew up there,
Grew
and
up
like
there.
there was a lot of in spread of values and light in this area.
Right, right.
And I believe those gonna come back again. All this foundation is
will.
gonna come back.
Yes,
You
it
have
will.
the seed in the land, and with more water, it's gonna definitely flourish again and come back for that area.
I know when people think of Egypt, I mean, the old country, you think of the pyramids and Pharaoh and all this stuff here, but you actually lived over there. You just can, you just have stories. Even as a little boy, how was the schooling? Were you actually home taught in the school, or?
So I went to actually public schools,
public schools
in
there.
Egypt, Sudan, and Syria, and all
Right.
these places, and just being there, Muslims, Christians, and
See.
smaller number of Jewish, but it was still as a place.
Right.
It was safe for us as kids growing, being open to interact with all type of faith of people.
Really?
No matter what is your faith comes from or the background, growing up in that. And I felt that was definitely something that we wanted to fight for and kept. It's changing now. It's getting a little bit harder for Christians to be in the Middle East and be in Egypt and other
Yes,
places.
yes.
But I had an amazing childhood, just remembering going back and being in school, and I had a lot of Muslim friends that I grew up with.
Right, right.
That I was able to just be an example of life for them, and they've been in life for me to connect with them.
Amazing. And you went to high school there also?
Yeah, so and high school was mainly in Syria and Lebanon. That's where most of the time is
Where
there.
most of it.
Being able to grow. We actually lived in Aleppo, in the north, and it's a beautiful city there. And actually in the people group, so there is a lot of Armenians.
Right, right.
There is
right.
a lot of Turks and Kurds. A lot of these people groups from the Middle East who grew up in Aleppo. It's a kind of a melting pot of all these cultures and languages.
So how far the travel from where you were born to get to Cairo, was that just like
So in a flight, it's like
400 miles away, or
yeah,
longer
it was
than that?
yeah. Egypt and Syria are really close to
Very
each other
close.
in a flight, and even Sudan and Syria they share a border, so they're close in the
Right.
area for that. So we had the time, definitely, like from time to time as a family, we go back to Egypt to visit family,
Right.
get recharged, and go back again to the field.
That's
on a
right.
trip
I'm
to
so
Syria.
glad you keep that love for your family, for your culture, for your land. You do that because
Yeah.
that you're supposed to. That's awesome.
Yes.
That's great. And so being here, it's something about, okay, there's something great Sammy has for us. You've been in Christian television
That's correct.
back home.
Back home, yeah, and there is a channel called Sat7.
Yes.
It's actually the first Christian TV satellites in the whole Middle East.
Oh,
and I was a part of the team that and established in the beginning of the channel, and it was the purpose of sharing the light, sharing the values, the good values in the faith, and God was the whole Middle East in Arabic language. So I was a part of producing or directing TV shows, documentaries, talk shows like this one.
Yes, yes.
To be able to share the good news, and always my love for media. It's a key, I believe. Having this key to reach to audience everywhere. There's no limits to that, and
no limits.
especially in the Middle East, media is a key of reaching people's hearts and minds in their houses where they are, and I believe it's important to reach them in the language they understand, their own language, and that's why was the purpose of starting this Christian channel, so they be able to hear and understand in their own language, that it reaches to them directly for that.
Wow, that is awesome. And you did that for some time then?
I did that for some time, definitely.
Awesome.
And it was, production is just traveling around the Middle East to produce this production. And after that, I got the chance to move to Australia. And I had the time to learn more about film production
in
Australia. And I got to meet this amazing ministry that's called Create International. And their focus is reaching unreached people groups. So people groups around the world. If we think about it, sometimes we think like, oh, there's only Arabic and English, and but there's millions of people groups are spread around the world. Like in India, we think when we talk about India, we think about one language, Hindi.
Right.
But there's a lot of languages. There's over 1,000 in India. Unique languages, unique cultures, people groups who have their own life and history. And the challenge is how to reach to these people groups in a way they receive and understand. Something that relates to their heart, to their mind. It's not reaching with one blanket way, but there's all different ways and methods to reach them. And that was the purpose of doing evangelistic films in a way that they receive using the local actors, using their own language, their own even music and instruments, their clothes, their food, because culture is close to our hearts.
That's right.
That's a key to reach a person.
To reach a person.
Even here in the United States, we look into that. We are in Hawaii, beautiful Hawaii. We have the Hawaiian aloha culture.
That's it.
The Hawaiian language and the history that's in Hawaii. So that's where how to be able reach those people with the message of love, with the message of hope, and that's the biggest thing that I believe our role for us is to bring hope and life to people around the world.
That's good, and that's awesome, and that's so true, because I believe culture, people, your own culture, whatever it is, African American, whatever, I believe you can really reach. People can reach their own cultures.
Absolutely.
And of course, and I love culture. I love. I've traveled a lot of places, and I love all different cultures. Respect them and love it. But it is something when you can reach home. And talking about home, back to the old country again. I get excited about Jesus, about how you were born there, able to walk the streets where, and especially Damascus, places where he's been. Have they changed? Well, I mean, I know we have updated buildings over there now. All right, so we can also, I'm sure, look on the internet and pictures and see.
There's
a lot of great.
But there is still a lot of the same parts that is mentioned in the Bible. It's still there. A lot of the buildings, you don't touch it.
So that's where people go when they do their tours. The tourists will go there and they'll take them right to
historic places, the places where definitely, the early history of Christianity in the Middle East and the world started there. And it's just amazing to be able to go back and just relive the Bible again.
Oh my goodness, the Nile River is something. I like that. I love that beautiful picture that you have of the Nile River. And I think of Moses as a little baby in a little basket, and in that little basket and pushed into the water. And it all happened just right there.
It all happened, that's right. Yeah, it all happened. It's actually in the south, and that's like a lot of closer where I was born in the area there.
Wow,
And
amazing.
yeah, it's just amazing to be able to have an evidence that actually the stories are real.
Right.
We worship a real God. We worship a
Yes.
God who loves us,
Yes.
and there is evidence that we can go back into Israel, Palestine, Syria, Lebanon, Iraq, Egypt, all these places where we
Right.
can go back and relive the Bible, all the stories and
All
the
the
history,
stories. Yes.
and just walk in the trail of Jesus. It's amazing to be able to go back to these places and see that. It's just, yeah, it's mind blowing,
It's
definitely.
mind blowing. Well, I know you have so much. You have a son, and you have, oh, he has, I know you can't wait to just tell him a whole lot of everything. He has a beautiful heritage. He's going to know a whole lot, I tell you.
Yeah.
Amazing. And especially this time during the year, during the crucifixion, during Easter time, how is it over there? Is it very real sacred over there in the Middle East at that time of the year, or people just go about their just every day? Do they have certain times a day that they'll pray, or the siren? I mean, because I know where I was at, they had like a siren went off, and you'd pray 3 times a day. And
Yeah.
is it different like that in Egypt?
In Egypt, we have definitely more freedom
Good.
for Christians
Okay.
and for
Okay.
others. And going back, as we mentioned, that Coptic Church, and that's where the Catholic Coptic Church, they are the biggest church in the Middle East.
Right.
They're placed in Egypt, and Pope Shenouda, who lives in Cairo, is the main pope for the Coptic Church around the world.
Oh, okay.
And there is actually, I love celebrating also the story of the Bibles of Jesus in different cultures. Because if you go to a Coptic church and see how they celebrate the crucifixion and the resurrections, it's an amazing, amazing experience that you go through. The celebration, the ceremonies, and how in the third day when God rose from the death, and have this doors, the big doors that was closed.
Right,
So the
right.
first actually 3 days, the whole church is like kind of like covered in black. And they have a lot of
Wow.
beautiful ceremonies.
Oh,
There's
my
prayers
goodness.
early in the morning, in the
Yes,
night,
yes.
and in the last day, everything switched to white. It's just celebrating the resurrections, and there is a big mass ceremony where they open these wooden doors, and they have everyone marching inside and just worshiping and singing songs and celebrating.
This is just the city itself. This is just.
This is
This
in the
is not
city.
a tourist type of thing.
No, this is just the local people, the local
Oh,
church.
my
They're
goodness, I wanna go.
celebrating that,
Awesome,
and
yeah.
connecting to it. And that goes back to years and
Amazing.
years and years
Yes.
of traditions that Christian kept in our lives. And I see the importance of having culture kept traditions and kept history to be able to go back again and see how early church used to celebrate Christmas or used to celebrate resurrections, and so it's amazing celebration. And going that, even in Syria, having the freedom for people to actually march the streets. So during the
Right.
3 days, especially in the third day, every church, they have group of people, they hold a cross, and they walk around, march the whole city. So in the last day, they block the whole streets, and they call kind of like the pilgrimage, where you go and visit the biggest 7 churches. And you just go from a church to a church to a church.
Wow.
And celebrate the facets of no matter what type of church or denominations it is. They go
Really?
from a church to a church and celebrate. There is unity in this day. You feel there's like everyone comes together, everyone is celebrating the same thing, everyone feeling the victory and the rejoice of having our Savior, Jesus. It's just an amazing
Awesome.
going back to that and see it. And coming here to Hawaii, United States, and
Yes.
celebrating with hula dance,
Right, right.
and amazing cultures,
Doing it
that
like that.
infusion,
Mhm,
definitely. And everywhere we go, there is an infusion between the culture and,
Right.
and Christianity.
In Christianity. My, that's amazing. So the cultures, the churches, are they? What are the size of it? You said the 7 large churches. Are they very large?
They're large, actually.
Like 200 or 300 people?
Oh, bigger than that. It's bigger than that. So going back, like in Egypt, there is at least 12% of Egyptians, 12 to 15% of actually Egypt are Christians, are originally Coptic who born up Christians, kind of like the original Aboriginal of
Okay.
Egypt.
Okay.
In Syria, there is a majority of these churches comes from a lot of ethnics and groups like Armenian or
Right.
Ashurian, Kildan. And Ashurian and Kildanis, that's actually where we still have people who spoke the first language that God spoke. You know, like Jesus. So when
What?
Jesus came,
Oh,
you know,
amazing.
Ashurian, the Aramaic language.
Yes.
There's still some services and people who speak the same language and worship
Right.
in the same language
Oh, my
that Jesus
goodness.
spoke. So there's it's a good number of, during the war now, especially in the last 4 years, there's more Christians had to flee outside of Syria to neighbor country
To neighbor countries.
or going to Europe. But it's still amazing. Even the church that I grew up with, and I lived there for 12 years, it actually got attacked during the war, and now they are rebuilding the church again.
Rebuilding the church.
And that's just a symbol of how no matter what hard time we go through, there's always going to be a rebuilding.
A rebuilding of the
that's
church.
it.
So when the last time, Mom, now, is your mom, is she there in the Middle East right now?
Yeah, she lives in
Oh,
Egypt.
she's-
Yeah.
Oh, she lives in Egypt.
Yeah.
And then your dad is no longer with us.
Yes.
He's in heaven.
Yes.
Awesome. Well,
Yeah.
that's amazing. And are you the only child in the family?
My sister, actually, I have a sister.
Oh, she's
Yeah,
beautiful.
and she lives in Alexandria too.
Wow.
She's a nurse. She loves going, helping. She have a passion towards refugees. and
Right.
people. So she traveled to Iraq, Turkey, Lebanon, all the places to work with refugees and just kind of support them during this wartime that the whole Middle East goes
Wow,
through.
I have so many more questions. This is the beginning of you being with us. We love Sammy being with us, and we cannot wait until you come back and join us again. But what I'd like, because of their time, if you have, you could leave us with a few words that I think would be very encouraging to a lot of people, especially different ethnic backgrounds, in worshiping the Lord and understanding, because you have such a beautiful spirit and you know so much, and you've come here on our show today to even share this, and we're just excited to know you, and
Thank
we
you.
just want to keep
Yeah.
this bond really real. So you just if you have something you can tell
absolutely.
us to encourage us.
Yeah, thank you. It's definitely in the kind of the spirit of Easter and resurrection.
Yes.
I wanted to celebrate cultures. I wanted to celebrate, our history. There is a unique in every culture. There is values, and you going back to every culture,
Right.
you will see there is values, and there's Bible values. There's
Right.
amazing things that we want to share.
Right.
And I want to encourage everyone to celebrate who they are and
Yes.
the way they're born, their culture, their language, their
Right.
songs. And I believe our strengths as a nation here, as a United States, that God blessed us with is the diversity of our culture and
That's
our
right.
country. Coming together, being able to celebrate together, worship one God, celebrate the victory of that. And the amazing thing we were talking about before we started the show is having the freedom here
Right.
in this
right.
country. Growing up in places where, even like in Sudan, I would say that was one of the hardest places growing up, and not having the freedom to worship God, or not having the
right.
freedom to go to a church,
right.
and not having the freedom to be on TV like here. It's
Right.
amazing to be able to
Have the
go back and
freedom.
think about it and be like, yes, we are blessed to be here. We are
Yes,
blessed
we
to
are.
have been able to speak our voice, to speak what is on our heart, and share the light and hope for the nations around us and the people.
Amen.
And the last thing I want to end it with is, no matter what happens, no matter what you're going through, there's always going to be a rebuild. There's always going to be the victory.
Yes.
And there's always going to be, comes down all the way to death, but there's always a resurrection.
Yes.
There is always a
Amen.
resurrection where it's going to come. So no matter
Sounds
where you
good.
are, what's your situation, if
That's
it's a
right.
financial situation or a hard time in the family or a sickness,
Mm-hmm.
there's always going to be healing. There's always going to be a
Yes.
resurrection. And that's our faith and a belief in God and Jesus.
Yes, it is.
And that's the foundation of our beliefs, is that we worship a real life God.
A real life God.
It's amazing just traveling all around all these countries and being able to see other religious or other gods. Going back would be like, we worship the real gods and the worship God. So
I believe it.
yes.
Amen.
Amen.
And I'm going to add on to that 1 John 12:32. And it says, and if I be lifted up from the earth, will draw all men unto me. And the Lord is just awesome. And this is great. I feel already at home. When you can talk about the Lord and his beautiful spirit, you just have brothers and sisters that you've just never met, you know,
That's
and
true.
you just meet them and you bond. So thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. Absolutely.
And thank you all for joining us on Paradise Table Talking. Till next time, thank you. Until next time on Paradise Table Talking, may God be with you in faith, love, and prayer.